Hello, I'm Natasha Mansley, Role Models Project Coordinator. In the spring of 2018, we were so impressed with one of the students' end of elective joint presentations that it was decided to make a short video of it. But first, let's set the scene.
The Role Model Project was an initiative by the Students' Union. They suggested that there was a need to work with teenagers on the basis of what they would like to have known at the age of 14.
So we think about this idea of what you wish you'd known. So an example is now an 18, 19-year-old might know certain things about a relationship from having been in relationships, and open up that space and just make it comfortable to talk about.
It's really rewarding to work with the young people and see them sort of grow, and every week they learn more, and it's really great to feel like we're making that difference.
I like working with students because they're not much older than us.
They still sort of remember what it was like to be our age.
And you can speak to them and be honest sort of thing.
I really wish I'd had someone come in and just tell me it's okay, put everything into perspective and just have someone to chat to.
For the students at BACA, they are getting a unique experience really of working at times one-to-one with somebody who's only 7 years older or so, discussing issues of well-being and mental health and so on. That, I think, is the core benefit of the project.
These students receive a thorough 5-week training programme that gives them the opportunity to reflect on their own school experience and values. It also equips them with the creative facilitation skills, confidence and theoretical framework needed to go on to develop and deliver these workshops with Year 9s. They work with the same groups of young people every week for 6 weeks. We hope that the following short edited version of just one of the group presentations given at the end of term gives a flavour of what the students have gained from this investment and how their reflection, informed by theory, led to a serious call for the possible alternative approaches to the teaching of mental health, well-being, sexuality and relationships in secondary schools today.
Okay, so when we planned this workshop, we wanted to create something that would symbolise our unity as a group, but also highlight our really important differences. So we created this metaphor, which has our differences and all the things influencing us around the sides on the arrows. And we based the whole presentation on the questions you gave us at the beginning. And we created this metaphor, which is that each triangle stands alone, but as a whole, we're much stronger and more diverse. So we rely on each other, just like the triangles do. And we rely on each other to stand up like we do as facilitators.
Essentially, I think we all came into this module with the knowledge of how critical these school years are for young people and our joint lack of PSHE lessons despite growing up in different cities. In a report by the European Commission in 2014 on the value of youth work in the EU, it states the main objective of youth work is to provide opportunities for young people to shape their own futures. We went into it not to teach as administrators of power, but to listen, engage and challenge in a space free of judgment.
I think we come from a really interesting standpoint as a group because Frankie was new this term, Molly did it last term, and I did it a year ago. And then I also volunteered with sixth form students and taught them how to run workshops. So I think initially I was really, Frankie was a lot more nervous than I was. But what we really found was that each young person is so different. You can't rely on what you've done before. And it was really refreshing to have a new pair of eyes on it, and it made it a lot more interesting.
And although working with a pedagogic orientation, our intention was not to be seen as authoritative figures, but one to trust and look up to. Storrow 2013 said that it may be the interpersonal relationship between the helper and client becomes more important than learning and teaching. And I believe this is possibly the reason why that the students felt more comfortable to have open discussions with us role models rather than their teachers, as they view them as authority figures. And on the other hand, we've been reinforced each week that we're not there as powerful teachers to convey facts and rules, but fellow young people just to offer support and to allow them to reach their own conclusions in their own time. So in my observation of the PSHE class, at one point a few boys questioned their need to do the work that had been set for them, and this just automatically resulted in the teacher issuing them a warning strike and telling them off. But Hayward suggests that individuals are more likely to support the legitimacy of a decision if they feel that their views were heard. And according to Hayward, shutting down the boys' questioning of the work would not only make them less likely to support the requirement of doing it, but also restricts their agency in being able to question the work.
I discovered through the Role Models workshop a crucial need for educational reform and how successful this model of teaching really was. After all, change is a central aspect of social pedagogy. By facilitating small groups and one-to-ones, this enabled a place for young people to feel comfortable asking questions, talking and supporting one another. It brought out a side of the young people that showed a high level of kindness, empathy and maturity. The workshops enabled the students to have a voice and feel comfortable talking to one another about important issues, ideas and experiences. However, this isn't possible in a normal classroom dynamic and can only take place through the Role Models project.
I believe in the need for a reform of the education system, and I believe that schools are too heavily focused on exam results and often to the detriment of topics like PSHE. According to Hayden, 2011, PSHE is about enabling individuals to exercise choice and responsibility. However, he argues that educational policy fails to recognise the importance of PSHE, as it generally has a low profile in public discussion of educational policy and often a low status within schools.
So our education system, I think, continues to ignore and discredit these critical voices. Instead of, it silences them instead of amplifying them. And Ofsted in 2013 released an accurately titled report, Not Good Enough, with Dennis and Whitehead arguing that young people are often left unprepared for sexual experiences and relationships, and this can leaving them vulnerable to exploitation. I think Storrow noted that there is this culture of repetition within schools that destroys creativity, and I hope that we've sort of started to bring in this culture of reflection by giving them permission to not only question us but each other. I think we're not there to provide a solution, but we're there to enable them to access the skills to help themselves. Education changes lives, but its negative impact can be devastating. And I hope that in the future there's more support in schools with learning centred more on celebrating differences.